Hi everyone. Today I'm talking to Domas Nutautas, who's a software engineer and the CTO of Mindletic, a globally recognized mental gym that predicts and prevents costly emotional imbalance at today's workplace. During our conversation, we talked about leadership, facilitation, service, and Domas' journey of becoming a software engineer and team leader. Enjoy. Okay, Domas. So nice to see you here. Nice to see you on the Happy Developer podcast. Um, so we have many things to cover. If we won't cover them, that's also fine. So maybe you just like to say something before we start.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that you're making this podcast, Povilas, and I'm curious to see what discussion will arise. And yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay, so to start, I think it would be important to give some context how we met. So you are a chief technology officer at Mindletic right now. Before you were a team lead at Trafi. At that point, I was helping Trafi as a recruitment consultant. So already at the time when I was working as a recruiter and I was looking for team leaders, Algimantas, the head of people of Trafi, repeatedly said, looks something like Domas, looks something like him, personality wise, skill set wise. So already at the time where there were legends about you. And then when I started working at Mindletic as a psychologist after I quit recruitment, I also bumped into you once again, but not directly. So finally we met. I'm really glad that you're here. And I think there are very important things to discuss. But before going into anything deep, maybe you could just uh, at least this is interesting to me to give some background how you got into the tech world, where it all
Mm,
started.
where it all started. All right. Um, so naturally, maybe from the young age, as a boy, I was interested in a lot of things around the world, and there was this inner curiosity. I don't know, maybe as part of my personality trait. And my older brother, he was really good at math, like Olympiad level, going international, Lithuania, and he would from time to time like show me some interesting bits of maths and walk me through and help me solve those problems. And I enjoy that, like not understanding something and like struggling to find a solution and then figuring out a way in unexpected ways. So during my school years, I enjoyed Lithuanian logic competition, which is called Kangaroo. I don't know. It's pretty big here in Lithuania, and I managed to um, perform really well, like every year. Um, so that was my beginning into problem solving and into difficult places to find solutions at. In the technology, I went into the end of my high school years when my parents asked me to help out by creating some web pages for their clients. At the same time, I was doing some like personal development on my Mac for an iPhone. So I was creating a little app to help us keep track of scores while we were playing with cards in school with my peers. And I graduated from high school, and I was not sure where I was going to. Was I going to physics, to math, to astronomy, maybe? Because I was not a computer geek. Even though we had a computer at home, I have two brothers, and they were more into like playing games and tinkering with the computer. And I found human interaction like more engaging for myself, um, as a bit of an extroverted person. Nonetheless, a friend of mine suggested I take a stab at IT and programming, and like it's perspective thing, and you're pretty good at it, so why don't give it a go? And I gave it a go. I got hired right after high school. A company named Mediapart like gave me a chance just based on my um, personal development of the application and my um, logical thinking, math understanding. Yeah, and I did pretty well, and I got really hooked and interested, and in mobile development, especially, and during that time. So this 2013, 2014, iOS development changed completely as Apple released new programming language Swift, and this was really a big boost for the whole community and me as well as a young developer. Um, Being in a similar role as the rest of the community and finding this, okay, we're learning all of this
Mm,
together and all of these patterns and protocol oriented programming and generics, type raising, and all of the crazy things we were going together, and the sense of wonder and trying to figure out the
mm.
best solution really drive me for the first couple of years um, in Media Park. Then
So
I really went into working on a product, on a single product, so not on a technical problem, but as well as the problem that we are trying to solve with technology. Um,
yeah. Okay, yeah, we will definitely get into that, I hope. Uh yeah, to lean on your early
mm,
roots. Um One thing I think it would be important to discuss is higher education. So if I understand correctly, you were hired immediately after high school. You did not complete a bachelor's degree, if I
yeah,
understand
so
you.
I actually started working on my bachelor's degree in um, like evening session in university, and only Kaunas offered such studies in Lithuania, and I was working in Vilnius, so I completed 3 years out of 6 of that university, and it really was not giving me
And
any
what was the
useful
degree?
thing.
Sorry.
Informatics.
Informatics. Okay, so I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of engineers before become engineers, they usually graduate from a computer science or in Lithuania it's called informatics degree.
Yeah.
And I feel that you did not like some aspects of that process. So if you had to, but still you became successful. So how would you analyze the importance of uh,
Mhm.
higher education for engineers, and why didn't it benefit you in particular?
Right, right. Um, I think real world knowledge is really way much important than having um, all of the theories in your mind about how things work from bits and like creating microprocessors and knowing the inputs and outputs of all computers. Like it feels as like in Lithuania, the computer science studies are like at least a decade or 2 decades behind what's actually going on. So we are working with like C++ programming, and I know there's some C++ programming out there, but that's considered pretty hardcore. Usually, the backend or front end development is happening on more modern languages. And in comparison, so at the same time, Swift was coming out with like crazy opportunities, and I was learning like every day for as many hours as I could. And then I had to do like an assignment for my university, which is like I will not ever use any of this. And
Yeah,
I think that this was the gap was only getting larger.
yeah.
I really enjoyed my colleagues and my peers in the university. They were mostly, as it was evening studies, more grown up than I was. They
Hmm.
were in their 30s or their 40s, and I was straight after high school. So the professors at university treated us well with respect, and they really even allowed some of my work to be treated as okay. So my database course was checked off because I was doing some work with databases and
Yeah.
my work, which was a real work. Um, yeah, so just
Yeah.
didn't find the value, and
Hmm.
the market was not asking for that, and
Hmm.
I didn't find the value in the studies. Personally, nonetheless, I am a big like proponent of the academia and finding something that you can study and go deep into, and really try to get your bachelor's degree or master's degree, work with peers and find like-minded people that you can maybe start something off together. I think it's of great value.
Yeah, I mean, your situation is I think particular in several respects. So if you allow me to analyze a bit, if I get something wrong, so feel free
Yeah,
to jump in. So one factor I think that is important is that you uh, as a pupil you attended Kaunas Technology University Gymnasium, which is basically like top three, maybe
top two,
top
top
two
one.
school,
Yeah,
yeah, high
yeah,
schools in Lithuania. It's like a university backed, and I know people who attend these type of schools when they are young. They get a lot of strong basics at school, and when they enter university in Lithuania as well, they are not challenged enough. It for some people it's even too easy. So I knew some friend who like took at school advanced courses in mathematics, physics, and when he had to attend Vilnius University, it was too easy for him. It was even too easy for him when he attended like uh, good universities in Scotland or the UK, and that's I think that's one problem, but also a blessing and a and a
yeah.
curse on the one hand. The other thing is that I think you got early exposure to the market. You said that your parents provided you opportunities to learn the trade through practice, so that's already a factor, I think. And the third thing, I guess, is that despite the respect you get in those evening courses, despite the grown-up people you attended the courses with, you were already working. You saw where the market is going, and it goes fast. So, you know, to to work on C++, you have to be a uber geek to enjoy that, I guess. And if you weren't at the time, you said that you also were more extroverted. So I can imagine that to find that motivation to complete those 6 years might have been difficult. So does it make sense? Is that
Absolutely, absolutely. What you're saying, like, like my pupils from Kaunas Technology University Gymnasium, like went into the best universities out there,
hmm
and if I pursued it, I could have gone to,
yeah.
the Oxfords and Harvards
But you
probably of
didn't
the.
also. That's also
Yeah,
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why. Uh, well, maybe we'll get into it, but during my late high school years, I started enjoying people around me more and more as I
Mm.
entered scouts, and I didn't want to leave Lithuania that much. I was really in a good place here, and
Yeah.
I have had people around me that I wanted to be with, including my family, including my scout friends, including my
hmm
um, other friends, and just to go abroad somewhere for a couple of years to study hard. um, it it didn't attracted me that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it very ties well with a theory that I love. Maybe you have heard of it. It's like one of the most researched and strongest theories of motivation. It's called self-determination theory.
Hmm.
And it basically explains three core psychological needs that people need to experience internal or inner motivation. In other words, that they would be motivated by inner drives, not external like punishment or reward. And these are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And basically, you had all three. So you were relatively competent. You had good skills already. You were working in the market. You had autonomy in the sense that you earned your money, and you also were interrelated in the sense that you had a organization that you belong. We will talk about it as well. You had your family, you wanted to spend more time with people, and I guess because these things were covered, so why to get a university where you still would be maybe motivated more by external factors like competition, high grades, and related. So it totally makes sense, at least from what I heard, why you decided to stay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So also talking about your childhood, you mentioned that you have two brothers. So are they older, younger than you?
So I'm the middle child. One is like 3.5 years older than me, and one is like 1.5 years younger
So,
than me.
so where did they end up? So are they also developers or are they doing anything else?
Um, well, my older brother, he went in to study economics in Riga, and he worked for a couple of years later in Ernst and Young, PricewaterhouseCooper,
So
and
also a bit technical still, data driven.
it,
Yeah.
managing the processes
Okay.
and the projects, but it was really draining for him because it felt meaningless what he was doing, and he
Mm.
was not challenged um, like intellectually, and he
Mm.
was not pleased like socially or financially. And he actually is now working as a developer. Like I pushed him, like you have, like he has an amazing brain, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like you could easily be in the top 1 or 2% of the world's developers if you put your mind to it. um, he hesitated, but like after a few good conversations, he's now really entering the development market pretty well.
Interesting, because I think you mentioned in the beginning that there was that influence to get into computers by one's brother, and then it
Yeah,
reversed in a way. Yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
That's a good observation.
Interesting.
He, as a child, he really pushed me to mathematics, and now I pulled him back to it really
Yeah.
to use his mind
Okay,
to
so
solve difficult problems.
speaking of your brothers, was there like any competition between the three of you when you
Hmm.
were growing up that might have had an influence on you as a person?
Absolutely. And this is a good question to talk about my younger brother, uh, because as he was younger, like 1.5 years younger than me, and like 6 years, like 5 years younger than my older brother,
Mm-hmm.
we could like tease him around. Like we would play games, and like logical games or board games, and at some point I don't know what made him the drive to compete with us. He would be playing games against himself and all alone. And like as he was 10 years old, 11 years old, he would kick our asses easily in any board game that we would play. And up to this age, so he's like 26 now. Uh, he is like one of the best minds in strategic thinking. And if we play any like really difficult board games as we enjoy to compete, like there is um, no guess who will probably win, and that is my younger brother. So we had a lot of
So,
competition in the
mhm,
intellectual sense. In the physical sense, less so. Though with my younger brother together, we were
mhm,
rock climbing for quite a few years, and as we are of similar age, we would compete in the
mhm.
same division. Um, but it was more of a like friendly competition. He was stronger, I was taller, so there were some problems that he could like climb easier, and some that I could. Hmm?
Mhm. Okay, the reason I ask about competition because I'm working as a counselor and some of my clients are working in tech, most of them, but some are engineers as well. And I noticed the problem of competition among developers, but usually it's very subtle. Usually the competition can be very indirect, where, for example, you, let's say if you belong to a guild at your organization, whether it's like back end, front end, or whatever, and you see many people who are not in your team. So in a way, there is that distance already. But at the same time, let's say you get into a guild meeting where is a presentation and you see someone like acing it, talking very expressively, explaining things, looks smart, talks well. And if, let's say, you're more introverted, let's say more reserved and more in your head, it can be intimidating, So I think it's just a hypothesis, but I would like to get your opinion, your ideas on that. So what do you think? How much of that competition between you as brothers might help you, but also maybe might hinder your development as a person in the future, maybe your professional journey? Would you find a relationship between these two things?
Mm. I was definitely way more comfortable discussing and arguing about
Okay.
problems and solutions and
Hmm.
what is the best tactic and what is the best approach. As we did that, I was exposed to it quite a lot as a child, as we were discussing and arguing with my brothers. So the competitiveness, I'm not sure about the competitiveness of it, though just being comfortable in a setting like this, I think yeah, can help out a lot, as instead of being a single child or just being out
Mm,
there by yourself, it would be way more intimidating, like discussing things with a team or trying
exactly.
to offer your insight into best solution. Definitely that
Yeah,
would be
and
more
it's
difficult.
yeah, and it's an unfortunate fact, but still, software development is male dominated. And if, let's say, you grow up in a family like of three brothers, so you also have your father figure. So it's also male dominating in a way. And when you get that exposure, it's likely that it will be easier maybe to be in that market. At the same time, it can be difficult because more and more female developers are entering the market that might have certain, or like on a broad scale, maybe different ways how to engage discussions, how to engage communication, maybe more openly, maybe more talking about one's emotions. And if you hadn't had this experience in a very testosterone driven environment, it also can be like a hindrance. So yeah, I was interested to learn how it play out in your situation.
Hmm. I would have to say that I am the most feminine of
Like
my family,
personality wise, right?
personality wise, of
Yeah.
course, of course. As I am aware of my emotions, and we'll get
Mm,
into that as I'm working now on Mindletic, obviously,
okay.
and I am quite social, and I'm quite interested in people,
Hmm.
and in relationships, not only in things. I am
Yeah.
interested in things, and the problems to solve, but as well as in people. And I think this is a big, like, separator between um, that like male and female. Like more male are interested in
And
things,
things.
and more
Yeah.
female are interested in female. Of course, there are many
Exactly.
female that are more interested in things and more men, but the distributions, as I've like read about or listened about, they are a little bit spread. And it would be interesting to see more women in the workplace of
Exactly. And
software
it's
developers, and
yeah.
how would the discussions
Yeah.
go, and what people, how would they benefit from um, taking into account like the
Yeah.
relationship things, as I do. And
Yeah.
I feel like this is really a good change in the software development
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, and once again, it's important to emphasize that it's a gender is a complex, difficult topic. I mean, to get into, and but my idea is that every one of us has like a certain, in a way, archetype, female archetype and male archetype, and according to Jung, the more they are balanced, the better. So to succeed in the world, of course, you have to be interested in things, because careers are about things. It's about making a particular job. It's creating a software. It's making a sale. It's engaging in difficult conversation, talking about a product, let's say, that you're working on. So if you are working on a physical job, it's also manual, so it's also things, so you have to have this part. But you also have to be able to work in a team. You have to be able to talk about your needs, to discuss things, to challenge each other, to say no, to say yes. So that's let's say that quotes female part. So when they are balanced, I think it benefits the person, but it also benefits the team. And to see I think you're a good example, because you say like the most feminine, but you are open to disagreement, which can require courage. And throughout the history, courage for some reason was associated to males, maybe because we were like hunters. But now it's like we are on the equal grounds, and males and females have to be able to disagree, and but to do that compassionately. So I think everything right now is mixed, and you need a lot of skills to succeed, including in software engineering, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mm, I think what you are mentioning, if you are more balanced, then like there are more variety of jobs that you can do easily, and you are more adaptable as you have one interests and one skills, and the other interests and the other skills. Though I believe that people who are like really, really masculine can find jobs that they thrive at, absolutely, and likewise for feminine side of it. So we are
Yeah,
what we are, and we
yeah,
we can only bring the best out of
yeah.
ourselves in the workplaces that we find.
Yeah, totally. I mean, different. This is why there are differences in personalities, because there are different challenges in life that we have to face. And maybe those challenges right now, they are much more complex than in the early past of human history. So it's not only about hunting and collecting berries, or preparing meat, or singing around the fire, although we in scouts maybe we do that as well, right?
Oh yes.
But nevertheless, it's way much more complex. And I think that in software engineering there is still that problem, that there is a lot of discussions about things. There's a lot of like uh, sometimes aggressive behavior when it comes to those discussions. And I think there is still a lot of room for talk about one's emotions, expressing them properly, not being afraid of slacking your colleague, and just asking a question, and doing that courageously. So I think that there is that gap that I think you and your product is in a way filling. And I appreciate to be a part of that journey. But to focus on scouts, I think it's also an important, I feel that is an important thing to you in your life. So if you can just describe what is scout movement or scouting, and how did you end up in scouting? So that's the second question. And what did you take from it, or are taking, maybe even now, as a engineer or leader?
Mhm. Right. So, scouting and scouts is a worldwide movement of young people that is aimed towards creating a better world. So it's very, very vague. But the roots of it go like 100 years back, where there were a lot of youngsters in the streets of UK that had no father or mother figures, and they were like no good from the eyes of the society. And there were people who saw the potential in the young people and tried to organize them and to give them responsibilities and to give them some authorities to like role models
Mm-hmm.
to look at, and to get their act together and to be proud of how they work with each other and help and support each other, instead of trying to get as much as possible from themselves, to look for opportunities to give as much as possible to others. So nowadays, as we have scouts all around the world, it is basically a a lifestyle for adults, and it is a really interesting booster for young kids who don't pay for scouting.
Okay.
You gather there with other kids, and you have a volunteer leader adult who creates this environment where you can safely learn from real world experiences. um, what like creating learning opportunities. This is the job of a leader. What does it mean? It means putting children into interesting surroundings. And one of the key ingredients of scouting, and there are quite a few, but one of them is like working in small teams. In Lithuanian, we even have a really nice word for this, skiltis, which is like a group of 3 to 7 to 8 kids of a similar age, and together they do difficult projects. For like they organize a hike, and like to
Mm-hmm.
organize a hike for 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds or like 16-year-olds, there's a lot of difficult decisions to be made or responsibilities to be spread across. And most importantly for me, maybe for the reflections to be had. Like it is one to have the experiences, and it is a whole other thing to stop after those experiences, look back, understand what you were going through, and reflect on your own, reflect with a group, see other perspectives, and understand better why others were feeling one way or the other. This gives us great empathy. This gives us like great compassion for the rest of us. Um, and To finish off, the young kid who grows in scouting, like he find okay, so and I joined scouts as I was like 14 years old, and I had really meaningful interactions with um, my scout friends of a similar age. I found my leadership skills there, and I was really encouraged by my leader there to, okay, so yeah, Thomas, take on the responsibilities, see if you can organize this or to manage this or to facilitate that. And from these experiences, as scouts grow, um, mm, they typically reach the the 20, as you're in your 20s and your like late teens. You join the last age section of the scout movement, where you still get something actively for yourself. Like, so there's a program dedicated to grow you, even though you are already 20 years old. Like, we would consider you an adult, but a really young adult. And what the program for the youngsters is, it is about challenging themselves. It is about servicing others, and yeah, just creating a better world in the way that you can. So that this is what scouting is. And with the second question you had, how I joined scouting, it was quite accidental.
Before
As I Yeah,
sorry, Thomas,
go
before you
for it,
get
go
into
for it.
this, I think it would be interesting to also spend a little bit time on the philosophy. What do you think?
Mm,
I mean, from how you described it, so if I understand, it's like a non-profit, basically a non-profit
Absolutely.
global organization that allows young people to, on the one hand, understand themselves better through experimentation and reflection, but also learning how to, in a way, survive in through various challenges. And it seems that many of those challenges, maybe because of the tradition, are done usually outdoors. Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Awesome.
not only to survive, but to be useful as well.
Service. Yeah. That's the other idea. Yeah. Great. Great. Awesome. Thanks for pointing that. So on the one hand, surviving yourself, but also helping others survive. So that's, I guess, if you're looking from a tribal psychology, it's like also helping your group survive. But when we talk about group, it's like on a societal level in a way. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Mm,
interesting philosophy, because yeah, there is the like that idea of learning, there is like that idea of service. And when I see you as a person who is working on a product that also in a way provides help to companies, to individuals, so there is also that service aspect, so it ties well also. And another thing I was thinking when you were discussing those challenges, those projects, and the importance of not only going through the challenges, but also talking through them. So I started thinking about, I'm sure that you heard of it, Kolb's learning cycle. And
absolutely.
there,
Yeah.
there are those like four stages that we go through when we learn experientially. In other words, not through textbooks, not through exercises, like, but through actual experience. And you mentioned, okay, so there's like active experimentation. So it's like maybe, okay, going on a hike and let's say getting certain exposure. So then that's concrete experience. And then eventually after that experience, you okay, someone facilitates the discussion. Okay, so what did you get from this? What happened? Why did it happen? Why, how we felt? So that's like the reflective observation. And then finally, you try to abstract something. Okay, so Peter, and John got into conflict because they didn't agree on the
Yeah.
process, how they should move forward. Let's say whether they should move up or move down up the hill, let's say, and they got into conflict. And in the reflection you discuss that, and then you get, let's say, a certain conclusions from that okay, when there are two, let's say, dominant figures, you can get into conflict, and that is important to negotiate a compromise, for example. So that's like experiential learning 101. And there's like corporate trainings around the same ideas. Companies do that in Lithuania, abroad as well. And it's great that kids get this opportunity to get this knowledge through without too much overthinking from an intellectual perspective, I guess.
Absolutely. Like kids enjoy this
Exactly.
tremendously. So they are having fun, and at the same time, they are getting prepared for the real world to be good leaders, to be good employees, to be good employers, and to be good citizens of their society, their country, the world, that can take care of themselves and that they can take care of others. So it is a really powerful idea, and this is why like Scout movement has like tens of millions of people all around the world. And I'm still quite an active Scout. I do join the camps every year, or I do join the hikes like every other month. Mm, and my strength lies in facilitating
Hmm.
reflections. So just a couple of weeks ago, Kaunas region had their camp, and I couldn't attend it. Nonetheless, I found opportunities to go visit the camp for two separate occasions, where I would come in for like 3 hours and would facilitate a reflection about the past day or past 2 days and what they were going through, and yeah, help help the people there reach some conclusions, better understand themselves, and
Okay.
move forward.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, tying this to your own professional experience now. So, in our corporate jargon, so facilitation is usually, I mean, that's maybe it's a bad generalization, but usually it's done by Scrum Masters, where, for example, after a sprint or two, you get on a retrospective, and let's say
Yeah.
you discuss, okay, what happened during the sprint, what did we learn, what went well, what didn't went well. And let's say in Scrum philosophy, Scrum Master maybe a separate role or maybe a role shared among engineers. The Scrum Master tries to facilitate that discussion, and it's like a very important skill that if let's say you acquired it in scouting, you basically don't even have to attend a lot of trainings, because you already, at least experientially, you are more or less qualified to let's say facilitate those, for example, retrospectives or any other discussions. So maybe getting the question a bit more broad. So let's say thinking about scout movement, thinking about scout values, thinking about scout processes or traditions. If you had just to share, let's say, to the audience, what type of values you took from that and what type of skills you learned, but and then those values and skills that, let's say, you adopt in your professional life.
Mm. Um, so there is a lot, and it's difficult
I
to put into
understand.
words. So I'll do my best. Um, I think the number one value that I took out of scouting is kind of kind of a love for humanity and love for other people, and this like drifts into service um, to others. What does this mean? This means that as I approach people, I can put my predeterminations aside and try to find the best in each person, as I know that there is the best in each person.
So, for example,
um
in each software
yeah,
developer that you're responsible for as a team leader,
yeah,
let's say. Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
um and I as in scouting, we encourage to grow the strengths and to work on your weaknesses. um and for a scout to see the progress is really inspiring, and for their peers to see the progress and growth of each of their friends is really inspiring. So for me, um, this undying belief that each of us can grow and can be of use, and mm, can really flourish in the society. It helps a lot, because as I manage other developers, or just talk with anyone, I look for the best in people, and I encourage them. Um,
So spending, sorry
mhm.
to
Yeah,
jump
go
in
for it.
here, but spending a little bit time on here. So okay, team leadership.
Mhm.
And you worked as a team leader, I think, at Trafi, and now you're a CTO at Mindletic. So that's like two important experiences in your professional life. So when you think yourself as a team leader and those values and skills that you acquired as a scout, let's say, if you had to provide, let's say, examples how this philosophy or, let's say, skill set that you acquired in like on a practical level is aiding you when you're, I'm not sure, you are coding or you're spending time with your teammates. So if you had to, you know, uh, tie that skill set and philosophy to what you're doing now, let's say, what would be that relationship on this particular aspect?
Mhm. So how am I applying
Exactly.
what
Yeah,
what what I gain from scouting?
exactly.
I think it is applied all over all over the work that I do, but some particular examples
Mm-hmm.
that I learned from scouting, but as well from my family before scouting, and
Okay.
some other experiential learning um, trainings that I've gone through as part of scouting and on my own as well. uh, would be number one would be like giving feedback and talking with people, and there are so many bad ways to give feedback, and there are only a couple of good ways to give feedback,
What
I
is a
think.
good way in your view?
I start off with what is not a good way. Not a good way is, for example, the famous sandwich is not a good way to say, okay, you did this good, you did this bad, you did this good as well. So yeah, take what you can. I I give out this feedback, and I feel that I've said, like, it's no longer a burden on me because I gave it to you. You didn't really understand my concern, as it was buried in layers of compliments, even though the critique may have been important. So what is a good way of giving feedback, in my opinion? and it comes through care and love and service. I start with saying, um, and with some humility and humbleness at the same time. I would start by saying that um, something is really bothering me, or not really bothering me, but I noticed something specific. Like, I noticed that you keep missing, like you keep getting late to our um, morning stand-ups,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure why. Like, I really care about you, and I
Mm.
wonder if there's something that we can do to help you out there. So in a sense, instead of just throwing critique at you, I'm there with you to try to
You're
understand
exploring
what's
basically
happening.
what is
Yeah,
going on.
excellent.
Hmm.
And I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
There might be like, this is very specific. Yeah, you're late to stand-ups, but there are more difficult situations can arise where some people might get an impression that that person like is not caring for the work that they do, and because they left out some bugs or they didn't commit their code before going back to work, and they draw conclusions as this person is careless or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would come from a different angle there, um, and and try to ask the person, how do you see this scenario that played out? Like, did it actually happen the way I understand, or
Mm.
how do you feel? And most importantly, I'm there to support and to help you.
Okay, so
So
and
mhm,
just to even make it even more narrow, so let's say, okay, you as a leader noticed that, maybe our team maybe members also noticed that, and
mhm,
while drinking coffee or smoking, let's say they are sharing this about that person, and you
mhm,
realize, okay, as a team leader, you realize that I need to discuss this. So do you like write a message? Do you like get on a one-on-one call? Do you do it like face to face, online? Uh,
mhm,
like how much time do you spend to it, because there's work to be done, customers are waiting for the next delivery, so there are those like important details that, like, on a theoretical level it totally makes sense, and I follow this philosophy in my counseling practice as well. But when you have an full hour or 50 minutes, that's one thing, but when you are
yeah.
busy doing other stuff, it can be much more challenging. So talking about those practicalities, if let's say some leader is also listening and would like to hear your own your own tactic around this, how would you describe it, let's say?
Mm. Um, I, I really struggle with written communication in a
Mm,
sense that there are so many ways to interpret what I'm trying to say, and yeah, putting emoji can help to bring the intention and the feeling. But oh boy, it's always much easier for me to talk with a person either face to face, or as we are working more and more remotely through a video conversation, as not only I can uh, say the message that they want, but as I'm saying, I can see the reaction that the person has, and I can tune the message that they get it right from
if
one
they
side. Yeah.
if they turn on their cameras, which is
Oh,
another problem
absolutely.
nowadays,
No,
because
no
people
way.
in meetings tend to turn them off, which makes it also very difficult again.
I haven't been in a meeting where people turn their cameras off for quite a while now, so I can't
Okay,
uh,
lucky you.
elaborate on this. But especially if we're talking one on one with person, we
Sure.
definitely expect their cameras to be on.
Okay.
And so when I would do it, if the matter is urgent, yeah,
Hmm.
I might do it the same day at the end of the day, or if it's less urgent, I might wait to one on one that we have scheduled.
Yeah.
Um, though what is difficult, there is not like one single thing that you could do to make this easier. We are talking about human relationship there, and you are building layers and layers and layers of trust, really big, between you, and it becomes much easier to give people critique or feedback, or to ask things from them, if they know that they can trust you fully and you have no bad intentions and that you are there on their like um, it changes how people respond to the same message based on
Exactly.
what relationship you have. And I do care about the relationship deeply. And I remember a few stories
Mm-hmm.
from Trafi, as I was quite young there to be promoted to a team lead, and it was because the CTO of Trafi at the time saw the reflective capabilities and the communication capabilities and the problem solving capabilities that they have. And I was managing a team where most of the people out there were older than me
How many
or
people?
of my age. So on the first year, we started like with 6 or 7 people and it grew to 11 or 12
Ooh.
people. And we even had to split the team in two teams.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lovely story
Mm.
because the team got quite well together. And I remember this one particular example where um, a colleague who's like 10 years older than me, maybe, uh, he gets assigned to my team, and we start off the first retrospective, and I'm all there caring, and they're like, what's
What the
happening
fuck
here?
are you doing here?
At least inside their mind, like,
Mm.
let's just get back to work and do what we're doing. And so he had this attitude that, okay, we're here to work, and I have my frustrations, you have your
Yeah.
frustrations, but we will not do too much to alleviate them.
Mm.
And I remember it took only a couple of months of like persistent like way of me presenting myself in a relationship where the person like kind of uh, changed their
Yeah,
perspective on
did
me as well.
180. Yeah,
Did
yeah.
180, and like, I actually feel that you care about me. And then I actually feel that there's meaning in speaking up and saying what I feel, and giving feedback to others. And this leads to like a safe environment was created out there for people to express themselves. And then going back to scouts, and scouts help to do this a lot, like creating a safe space for people to live their experiences through and to reflect on them. This is what scouts do as children with leader support, and this is what I think workplaces can benefit tremendously from. And we
Okay.
know this. This is what Mondletic is
Yeah.
doing, because like Google did the studies and Harvard did the studies, and yeah, like trust in the
Mm-hmm.
team and having emotional safety inside the team. It it can help people focus on the work that they are
Mm-hmm.
doing instead of the weird relationship and the hunger games that might be
Yeah.
happening in the company and trying to survive themselves. It's a tremendous feeling when you can just focus on work. And if you have a stupid question, you can ask the stupid question. If you don't understand something, you can say. If you have a critique, you can be all in on the work, and don't have an overhead. What should I say? Who will think what?
Yeah. Exactly.
This is such a huge
Yeah,
stressor.
it takes a lot of energy, and then it's
Absolutely.
totally normal that you don't have any energy left for writing the code, let's say. And so it's totally normal. Now, look, so if we had to a bit to summarize a bit, so one
Mm,
thing I think you discussed, which is very important, so it's about how you do feedback, how you give feedback, and it's not about like the technique, but more about curiosity, exploration, and caring. And it's like a not necessarily uh, let's say what you do, but more how you do it. And it's more about
exactly.
the attitude, more about how you engage that person, what is going on in your head, what is your like expectation. So you're not manipulating, you're not trying to get anything, you're just trying, okay, what is going on? I noticed this, let me
Mm,
help me understand what is going on. So I
yeah.
think that's one important aspect. And the other aspect is like foundational, even more so, where you discussed about creating trust, where for example, okay, maybe in the first retrospective you notice that some people are a bit hesitant
Skeptical.
about your
Yeah.
skeptical
Yeah.
about your approach because it's a bit feely touchy wishy-washy, all these kind of things. But when you do it persistently and you show that, okay, this time I'm doing the same, this time I'm doing the same, this time I'm doing the same, and people realize that it comes from you, it's natural, it's that care, that there's no like something that you're trying to get from these people, and then they start to maybe see the benefits, they see the other colleagues who are engaging, and then they realize, okay, so that's maybe nice, we can do this thing that works. And the fact that the person like said that, now I trust you or something like that, I know that you care about me, right? So I think it was like a strong dopamine spike when you heard those words.
Absolutely. Like my teammates have brought me to tears with good words far too many times. We have
Wow.
we have like feedback sessions from time to time, like every quarter or every half year, and it is overwhelming
I
most of
can
the time.
imagine.
Um,
Oh,
yeah.
Domas, anything like, I already want to maybe switch to a different topic, but maybe anything, any other values or let's say processes that are important to discuss as well, in addition to the way you give feedback, in addition to how you, let's say, facilitate retrospectives, anything else that you might have taken from scouts and that you're applying as a CTO or team leader that you think it's important to discuss?
I think a couple of other things would be like discipline
Okay.
and respect for others, and like pulling your own weight, and being useful, being proactive. Not this is mm,
Mm,
the last one I just said, and it kind of triggered me as so scouts have this shout. I don't know how it's called. They say be prepared. this
okay.
this is like kind of their slogan. What they are trying to say there is that um, look out there in the world, there are many opportunities for you, and be prepared, and actually even one step further, be of service, and take care of the things that you can around you. So this I bring this attitude to my team. It's like, you saw there is a problem. For example, if someone saws there's a problem in our code base, like, don't let it slide. Like, we are owning this part of our product. At least like write it down so we can work on it later, or if you can, just fix it right away. So this kind of ownership, and like being useful, and being disciplined, and having something to aim at, and pushing yourself to improve. This is all of this comes like partially, at least, from
But what
scouting.
you're saying, I think you're saying what it's even more deeper than just okay, let's say identifying a problem, not sliding it away, and just like
Mm,
working on it. I think it's about like exploring for opportunities. Okay, so I'm an engineer. I'm not just only delivering finished task, I'm not only writing code, I'm actually trying to think, how can I improve, let's say, the product I'm working on. And okay, that's one thing to, to complete the tasks that were assigned by, let's say, product owner, but the other thing is to look for opportunities, what could be better, what could additional features go to the
yeah.
backlog or something like that. And if you have this attitude, it totally changes how you engage the work, how you provide ideas to your team or to your team leader. And then if, let's say, there is no safety, the feedback is terrible, and you don't feel safe, you don't feel trusted or trusting, so of course you will just try to get your job done, get back home, watch Netflix, and that's it, but yeah. So I think it's way much more deeper when what you're saying, and it entails much more things. So I totally appreciate what you're doing, Thomas.
Thank you. It's let's go.
Okay, so Mm, what else? I was thinking to discuss. So let me check my notes. There are so many interesting points we could discuss. So speaking about, I think that's a good place to stop here a bit. Is speaking about, yeah, we talked a lot about the benefits of what you took from scouting, and let's put our miserable nihilist software developer hat. So not everything is working the way we expect, not everything is that great, and there are a lot of challenges that we face, and we realize that, okay, this is not working the way I expected. People are not engaging. I'm trying my best, but there's still lack of trust, there's still lack of safety. So any, let's say, lessons that you learned through your explorations as a team leader or CTO, that it would be a great space to rehash and maybe share for other people to learn from your path. What do you think?
Hmm. Um, just talking about the lessons that I've learned as a team leader.
Yeah, because
If the,
you mentioned a lot of things that
Mhm.
worked based on what you learned as a scout, but I'm
Yeah.
sure that there were situations where you did your best and best intentions were put to make certain principles or certain techniques work, but you still, there was that brick wall that you did not manage to go through. Maybe that moment is still ahead in your future, so that's also fine, but maybe anything that you expected, that you noticed that didn't work as you expected as a team leader or CTO?
Mhm. Um, Interestingly, I think one of the challenges that I had in my teams was that people are not ready for such things. And okay, I can work them into a trusting and safe relationship, at least with me, as I have one-on-ones and I have retrospectives and I'm consistent throughout my behavior. So that helps. Though if I start expecting for them to care about the product and look for ways to improve it, or to challenge the ideas and to speak up and to be proactive and to be prepared, from the scout work, um, this change does not happen that fast. Like,
Yeah.
people have their characters built through their years, and uh, there are people who go to work, and it's okay, they do their work, they get paid, this is how our economy
Yeah.
works. And me expecting more of them to be really engaged and to, to be an active um, part of a team. um, I had some struggles with this, where um, I'm trying to raise the bar and to push
Hmm.
people to go further and further, and they are, not ready or can't. There's God knows what baggage they are pulling with them
Hmm.
from their past experiences and past works. And I've heard, like, my teammates say, like, that they still have nightmares from their previous
Yeah.
work, where someone will say, "Hey, you, like, what have you done during the past day? Where is the result?" And, like, they would get
I mean,
stuck
that's
back
like a
again in their
PTSD level
exactly,
flashbacks can be. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So that's, of course, it's difficult to get out of such situations,
Mm.
and to get out of situations where person just doesn't feel safe out there in the world, and it's really hard to feel safe at work at the same time. So they are protective of themselves, but at the same time to push themselves to be more active and to be more caring if they are not that caring and not that active, and they are interested in the coding of the solution, instead of the bigger picture that we're working in.
Amazing. An important topic I think you touched upon are, these nightmares, because totally, I mean, what people experience in their work is usually some of the worst experiences. I mean, and even in my practice, let's say when I was beginning as a human resources specialist, so like in most of my companies, I work like in the 2015, 16, maybe up to 17. I noticed maybe other people, let's say, bullied or maybe experiencing
Yeah.
emotional abuse, let's say, where, for example, the manager is doing gaslighting. So I experienced gaslighting where, for example, let's say a manager says that, okay, so other people are saying that you look like a victim. Then I ask, what are those managers? Like, I cannot say. So it creates that strange space where you feel that something is wrong, but there's not like particular evidence. Or, for example, you should do, let's say, high end work like recruiting or consulting, but your manager requires you to go and print some papers. You make a small mistake doing that, so she asks you to do once again, like repeat the half an hour process once again. So some kind of situation. I think it can be even worse when you're an engineer because you're working on a way more complex thing. Let's say it's a big system, and of course we can understand those who bully because they had that weight put by their manager, and it's
Yeah.
it waters down through the whole company or the whole organization. So there is compassion for that as well. But nevertheless, I mean, those nightmares can be horrifying, and it would be interesting for me to learn. And I think it ties well to the mental health aspect, and going maybe to the Mindletic topic route is about the discussions around mental health with your employees, with your teammates. I am still struggling to find where is the silver lining, because there are certain things that I think would be important to discuss with your teammates, where for example, okay, if let's say you have something, let's say PTSD level stress after certain experiences. So if let's say you share something like that to your manager, the manager might be understanding, maybe be more patient, maybe assign maybe different tasks, but at the same time you still have to expect that work done that is required by the person according to his or her level, let's say, or level of responsibility. So in your opinion, how much mental health discussions should be with our teammates, let's say, and where is the line where we should not, let's say, not how to say, not cross and leave it to counselors, let's say, that work at Mindletic or other platforms. What's your take on that?
Mhm. It's difficult to put the line precisely somewhere.
Mm,
Um, what I'm trying to do as a leader, and I think what the company is trying to do, and the whole economy really, um, is to be productive and to make sure that the people who are working there are doing the best job that they can be doing. What does that mean? Well, that means if there's particular things that are stressing the person, and they cannot perform as well as they could, well, maybe it would be of benefit for me to know about this, and like as you mentioned, change the type of work they do, or um, have them do more of other type of tasks, where they feel more or less comfortable. Um, so I think, as if you have each of us as full of problems, I'm not saying that we're not, but if your problems are really not stopping you at work, and while you're at work, if you manage to be fully present, if you manage to be um, open to others, if you work uh, um, if you work like with compassion, and you take criticism like with love, I don't know, and if you're not overweight by the surroundings happening, then there's no need maybe to put in the surroundings you have at work. um, Nonetheless, as long if the relationships are strong, and you are in a trusting um, state with your team, people will share what they want to share way easier without you even prompting them. And I had this experience where one of the teammates, like, he was he was kind of distracted for a week, and he wouldn't perform as usual, and I wasn't sure what's up, and he didn't ask what's up. Maybe I would have in a week or so. um, but turns out he was going through a breakup with his girlfriend. You would think nothing special that you would need to bring into work, but he was really busy in his head about the
yeah.
breakup, and it was really weighing him. And he had his other friend from a guild who said, like, you need to say this to Domas. You just say this to Damas. He'll understand you. Don't worry. So he got some encouragement from the site. He brought it up, and I was as understanding as I could. I asked what can he focus on and work well, what is overwhelming for him now, and yeah, we found, like, for him, working for many hours on his own was, he couldn't do it. He needed to have people bring him back from time to time. So then we had more collaboration planned into their work, um, as he went through the struggles he had.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, it only took a couple of days for him to say this to the rest of the team during stand up, and he was like, "Yeah, you might have noticed that I'm struggling a bit with the work that we have. I actually have this situation back at home where we are going through a breakup, and it's weighing on me." And other people felt supported, and this is really, really valuable for the team. If they have some information how to approach that person differently, then they can be more productive together, and they can work easier together. And we had this practice in Crafty, and I know that teams out there still continue this practice, and we have this practice in Mindletic of our team where during the morning stand-up, sure, it's important to speak about what I managed to do yesterday, what I'm planning to do today, but the key of the stand-up is how I am today, like this morning, how I'm feeling, and like what is my energy level, how pleasant or unpleasant do I feel,
Mm-hmm.
is there something that keeps me busy, um, and putting it to words in front of others um, is on one hand like a reflection that a person does, and he can deal with his own feelings better through the day, but as well it changes dramatically how other people approach you. So if you're full of energy and you're having a good day, okay, no one will overthink too much. But we had like plenty um, of situations where a person didn't slept well, and they're feeling really drained, and other people would bring the same questions and do the same things as they would normally with that person. That changes how they do it. They can more easily be empathetic in the situation, or maybe ask like, hey, like, how are you, are you getting your energy back up during the day or not? And this changes everything then. So where
Oh.
is the line? What should we bring to work and what we shouldn't? um, I think we bring to work what we feel comfortable with bringing to work, and if we feel really safe to work, we might bring way more. If we don't, we bring in way less. Of course, it's
Mm.
there are situations, I imagine. I didn't have much situations like this that would pop into my head, where someone has a really deep experience outside of work that they share with others, and it really brings everyone else down.
Mm.
That's, that might happen. One might be afraid of such situations. Um, though I've not experienced too many of these situations.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, in contrary, people would bring something that's bothering them, and others like would support them in that, instead of like drowning together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think that from how you painted this image, a lot of things have to be accounted. So on the one hand, there has to be that safe space to discuss things, and that space usually is contained by the leaders, team leaders, the whole organization leaders. So contained in the sense that people are allowed to speak up and they will not be judged, and the person who is facilitating the emotional expression will not be overwhelmed too much by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's already can be difficult to create that organizational dynamics. Then there is the internal trust of the person to bring these things up and realize that, okay, the person will not be judged, and you can have the safest environment. But if a person is a bit paranoid on the paranoid level,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sharing about these things can even trigger more anxiety, so. And then there is another problem that people who contain that environment have to be relatively well versed in mental health and how it you know how it relates to productivity and performance. And it's not like a very simple relationship. So some people who, let's say, they are experiencing, let's say, marital discomfort in their personal lives, they might see work as a escape form where they try not to think about these things and they try to focus on that and be productive. Whereas for other people, they can bring that to that work and it can have an impact. So it's also realizing where it's for whom is okay to talk, for whom is not okay to talk. You have to have an understanding about psychological dynamics, about mental health. And then you get the question, so okay, but managers, they will not be psychologists. So
Yeah.
and then you cannot expect too much from them. But then again, if you don't have the proper background, you don't have the proper understanding, talking about these things can sometimes re-traumatize people. So, I understand that there is no easy answer, but that dilemma where you care about the person versus you care about the organizational results, I think it's that dilemma is difficult. And it, of course, it changes from case by case. But I still, to be honest, I don't have an answer. Maybe it would be great if managers would have basic training in mental health literacy, that they would be able to identify the key disorders, they would be able to identify key symptoms. Second, that they would have resources at hand to refer people, let's say, to Mindletic or any other, let's say, platform where it can provide emotional support. They understand, let's say, okay, for this particular purpose, it's important to discuss because it's affecting whole dynamics, whereas in this particular purpose, maybe it's less so. So I think there is some psychoeducation that can be provided to managers, but then managers should be open to learn these things. And, it takes time. You have to spend a lot of time on your
Yeah.
own skill set, on your managerial experiences, like, delivery, productivity, performance, stakeholder management. So it's already a lot on your plate. So, I still don't have an answer. And yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think that there are situations that it can go in a totally different direction. So if you allow me to give an example, so just from my personal experience, so a engineer experienced a very difficult divorce, and in that relationship there was some narcissistic abuse. So there was a lot of to that in general, and the person expected that the manager will understand that, let's say, and it will be compassionate. But at the same time, the person after that experience realized that work is not the most important thing, and then the productivity dropped. But then, the person is getting into counseling, and it takes time, to get that balance after a difficult process. And it can take, let's say, 2 weeks, it can take a year. And now the question is, so what should the manager do? Because still the person was hired to do the job, but at the same time, the person did not decide to get a divorce. I mean, it happens due to very difficult circumstances. I mean, and when I say not decided, of course, but it can
Mm.
be sudden in a way. And then, okay, so how much patience should be on the manager? So how much can you tolerate and how much you shouldn't tolerate? So, okay, the person is going to therapy, that. The person goes to counseling, there is some benefit, but there is still no results. So how to go about it? So maybe any thoughts, or I mean, I understand that we are jazzing right now, but still maybe any thoughts from your experience or your understanding.
Mm. Um, it's a difficult these are difficult situations and problems that you're
I
bringing up.
like talking about difficult
Uh,
problems.
there we go. And not having like a specific situation in front of us and just imagining things, all of our imagined like solutions or tactics might fail dramatically
Sure,
in face of a specific
totally.
situation. Mm, I think what can be done. So
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned previously, so the economy works when it's productive, and the company and the team works when it's productive. So if the person cannot be productive in the role that they are in, so are they in that, like, are they fulfilling their role? If they are not
Exactly.
fulfilling their role, so what can we do about it? We can suggest them taking some vacation,
Yeah, okay.
or like, I don't know, we can wait for a month. Probably there's like probation period, and like
And
you
see
say
how it
that,
goes. Yeah.
like, okay, we understand that these are difficult things, but like, you're not working as we expect of you to work, and
Mm.
that matters. We care of you deeply, and we wish that you're sorting things out. um, so these kind of things come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, anytime a team, a company does any difficult decisions like letting someone go,
Yeah,
it brings a message to the rest of a company, and it has a cost. Like, if you fire someone, like, it brings a message to others. This is a thing that you might get fired for.
exactly.
And uh, of course, good managers might help the team understand the situation, and for them to still feel safe and not worry too much about getting fired, and really be focused on the work that they're doing to keep them
Mm-hmm.
productive. But it's difficult to manage the situations, and especially in the past, like, a couple of months, really, as we're in the middle of 2022, with the economical recession kind of undergoing, maybe, I don't know. But companies need to tighten their belts and to lay off some people, and it the change can be dramatic in the morale of the company. One company, I imagine, can lay off half of their employees, but the others will feel like strong and inspired to go forward and to pull through. And there's a situation where a company may lay off just a couple of percent of their employees, but others will feel paranoid through the rest of the year. So how the company discusses these things, and how open they are to the rest of their employees, I think, can, like, it can be day and night.
Yeah.
The same things are happening, and then again, we're coming to how they happen can determine very
Mm-hmm.
much so the outcome of the
Mm-hmm.
actions. And
Okay.
it's difficult to pin down the how. If I had to, I would say, if you're doing this like with with openness, and you're doing with this like with trust and with love, I think it's way easier for people to still feel comfortable to go along the way. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it like strictly, and not giving a live talk about some things that happen, but just writing a message, okay, there's difficult times, we're laying off half the people, like, come on, that's not the right way to handle the situation.
Mm-hmm.
um so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good elephant that you pointed out is those layoffs and um yeah, so in Lithuania, we all heard about Genius Sports closing their basically offices. I think that I read somewhere that Shopify will be letting off a certain
Mm-hmm.
number of their employees. And in my counseling sessions, uh, not only on my athletic, but in general, I already see people getting a bit anxious about it and talking about it. And there's already some news also that are still not public, but we are who are in the business, we're already aware that it's going to happen, and we will get even more of those news in Lithuania. In the US, it's already like starting in the layoffs. So that's sad. And Mindletic, I think, is a that's also interesting. So as a counselor at Mindletic, I also had this. So okay, um, we will get layoffs. So there is a lot of people to be cared for. Maybe some engineers that will lose their jobs, and because I'm focusing on tech people, okay, I will be for service, right? But at the same time, the question is, will be companies um, willing to pay for such services? Because it's still, you're trying to look what is beneficial cost wise, and these type of products, they maybe they're not the most expensive ones, but it's still, it's an investment. And yeah, so also, to be honest with you, I'm also not very safe in this particular manner, because I'm not sure if I will have work, whether people will be willing to pay for counseling. Will they realize that, okay, in these particular circumstances, this is I'm willing to pay for, although costs are rising, although inflation might go down, but still, it's in Lithuania, it's a tough situation. But at the same time, you know, uh, if companies will decide not to support their employees in that, there might be that decrease. So um, not to get too much into the business, I just wanted, to let you
Mhm.
know how I feel about these things. And, I mean, if you want to react, that would be great. But I was thinking of talking maybe more about Mindletic as a product. But still, any thoughts on this particular matter, and how in your hypothesis, how this will end up for you guys as well? What do you think?
Mhm. I, there's no doubt in my mind that Mindletic is a useful time
Mm,
in difficult circumstances.
sure.
Mindletic was born during the first months of the COVID crisis, during a hackathon, which was called the Hack the Crisis. Was the hackathon, and the crisis was the COVID happening out there, which really shook up the mental health of each and every one of us in the world.
Yeah.
and and during the difficult times, companies and employees, I think they are it's easier for them to accept feeling difficult feelings and accept anxiety, and they don't just put it aside. They can I don't know, mm, like be more determined to do something about it. So in Mindletic, and there is a great tool for such cases, as um, it is there for a person to take care of themselves, and for company to show that the ones that we have here, we want you to be strong, and we want you to be productive, and we want you to flourish further on. And these are difficult times, and it might be overwhelming, and you might not have the capacity to deal with yourself, or you might not have the support around you to deal with yourself. Good, good for us that there is professional like way of dealing with this, which is like quite affordable, and it is like anonymous and very much accessible. Like imagine um, like trying to call someone and to book an appointment in another town of the city. Like there's a lot of friction for you to go to your first session. um, and right now with Mindletic, or other tools around the world, which in this remote um, like era, allow for people to really book an appointment easily, anonymously, and they get to experience it from the comfort of their homes. Even though, and you could elaborate on that, like the remote experience and talking to a person through video is not the same as talking to them face to face. Though from an athletic perspective, we have posted various studies from others that show there is not any significance in the canceling
Yeah, I mean
value.
to jump in a
Mm-hmm.
bit. I mean, I'm basically mostly trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'm planning to study it in this autumn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe one of those best suited modalities for work in remote settings, because it's more about how you think about things and how your thoughts influence your emotions and your behaviors. And if let's say, and yeah, and the research basically shows that it suits for many therapies as well, but basically you need around, let's say, 8 up to 12 maybe sessions to experience some relief already in your anxiety levels or depression levels in the CBT modality, right? And that's what I observe as well. I mean, Mindletic clients, they don't see, for in my case, they are not very like long-term clients that, let's say, might go for therapy to 1 year or 2 year. Usually the work does not provide even such opportunities to go that long, although there are exceptions for certain clients where you have like unlimited possibility to book a psychologist. But usually it's like from 8 up to 12 sessions, there is like immense progress. And I cannot talk about other modalities, but it's well suited, I think, with that remote work. So speaking of Mindletic, you are a CTO, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that you are aware of similar products in the market as well. And you do market research and you try to improve that product as much as possible. And I think one of the key challenges, and maybe it's not like for you as a CTO, but I think one of the key challenges is the matchmaking process.
Mm-hmm.
And are there, let's say, any technical challenges that need to be accounted to make that matchmaking process successful, that the client who, let's say, looks for a qualified person, uh, the person would be able to find the exact person that they need personality wise, experience wise? What do you think are those technical challenges as an engineer that have to be accounted for this to work? What do you think?
In our case, what helps a lot is that all of our psychologists are like certified, and each and every one of them will be of, of a great help to any client. Of course, the
Yeah.
personality might match better or worse,
Yeah.
and therefore we have the photos of the psychologist to see if you feel that person looking like this as someone you could talk to. We have their descriptions, we have feedback from
Sure.
other people who already went through the council. Psychologists even like point out what are their traits and what are their kind of values, how they work. And I think this helps. And I know this works well because our clients who go to psychology sessions are extremely satisfied. Like we
Mm.
ask them after sessions,
Okay.
like how was your experience and would you recommend it to others? And it is the NPS score, which is
Yeah.
from minus 100 to 100, is in the high 90s, which is
Wow.
like baffling. To be above
Indeed.
30 is really good. To be above 60 is extreme. But for us, knowing that our clients really enjoy the sessions that they have and they would recommend. Though to get back to the question of the technical challenges that we might have on Mindletic. So one of the most interesting challenge that I didn't have much prior experience was keeping data as safe and as anonymous as possible, like learning ways to do end-to-end encryption in places where we need so, and really to anonymize the data to put like
Yeah, indeed.
to put the details in one place and to put uh, the um, the identifiers in other places. so that even in worst case scenarios, we would not leak any personal data of our customers. So this is a really interesting
Yeah,
challenge.
so speaking of identifiers, so already usernames, some people put their names, even first letters of their surnames in their title, in their username that they use. Then you have, let's say, the topics a person chooses that would like to discuss. So that's another thing that might give an indication. Then you get, okay, so the conversation itself. So some people, for example, there is an interesting, I'm not sure it's a feature or bug, but sometimes when people connect twice, the last connection remains in the conversation. And then let's say there are two Domas in the conversation. I remember a client got paranoid because the person felt that that conversation is being observed by someone or blah, blah, blah. So once again, you're as the same theme, you're putting so much effort to make it as encrypted and confidential as possible. And then you get this weird situation where for very natural reasons, you get like two the duplicates and there's like no surveillance, but the person feels that he is or she is observed. So
I imagine funny situations like this happening. Though I'm proud that we've gone to great lengths at the encryption side, and we consulted with experts, as I don't have the expertise and side from my previous work. So this is really quite interesting, and quite I'm quite happy to sleep well at night, knowing that the data is separated well, and we did absolutely what we could.
And one last question, just a personal question. Why did you choose Jitsi?
Jitsi, it's a really great question, and the fact that we're a startup, it allows us to move incredibly quickly. And we're still a small team, and we were not using Jitsi at the beginning. Like 2 years ago, we were using the service called Agora. It's an okay service. It does the video calling, but it's owned. Agora is owned somewhere, I think, in Asia. There are some prices to pay. We do not see the code inside, and we are not fully in control. Actually, a colleague of mine from Trafi, once Trafi started using Mindletic, as I was already working there, just pointed out to their leader in Trafi, saying, "Hey, why Mindletic is not using Jitsi? Jitsi is open source, and Jitsi is freely available, and you can self-service it, and
So
why aren't they using it?
Practical reasons.
Okay. And so the traffic leader bring the message to us like, "Hey, have you looked into Jitsi? It seems quite cool." We took a look, and we found the benefits of us being able to host the service ourselves. So no third party is in there who would manage the video calls. We know that it is set up in a peer-to-peer way. So the video from your computer is going straight to the device of your clients. It is not traveling through any servers on our side.
That's also important.
That could record the video or something. And the fact that it is open source, there's the transparency. We know what the code is, and we know what it does, and we know that there is no extra hooks or catches in there.
So in a way, you can play with that code and adapt to your own needs as well when it comes to Jitsi.
Absolutely. Though if we would be talking about developers and the open source community, if there's something we need to change, we prefer to actually do a pull request to the Jitsi code base to allow for some kind of functionality. So not only us would benefit from it, but the others would benefit as well. And actually, if there's any issues in the approach that we are trying, the maintainers of Jitsi would point out. So far we didn't have to change Jitsi whatsoever. It's a really good platform.
Amazing.
And we can they allowed tweaking it in like easy configurable way without us having to go in the code and accidentally mess anything up ourselves. just to remind, like maybe the listeners, not to remind, but to shout out, Mindletic is not only about
Exactly.
connecting
Exactly.
people to professionals, and there are quite a lot of extra technical challenges and problems to be solved for us to facilitate uh, like self-reflections and emotion
Yeah.
tracking and gratitude journaling and meditation and breathing exercises that
That's
users can
another
do on their
topic.
own behalf.
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
Absolutely. So these require quite a lot of our attention as well, because the psychologists, they really they lift their part of the application quite high on their own. So as long as we get people together with a psychologist, there's already a really good experience for the user, as the user, as being taken
Yeah, I
care of
mean, Domas,
by the psychologist.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, and sorry for not pointing out that in the beginning, Mindletic, like it's two products in one. Let's be honest, and there is some. I believe there is that competition because maybe some people prefer that individual aspect of the app where you can work on yourself and become
Mm-hmm.
more emotionally aware, and then there is the help of other people where we come into the
Yep.
equation, and I think in an ideal world, I mean, that's my hope is that people would be as independent as possible and have the necessary resources to get that emotional awareness, maybe even emotional relief as well. And right now, still, I feel that there is a long way to go. And I would appreciate to have this conversation as well, maybe in the future about the app, about this particular aspect of the app. And yeah, I mean, there are many competitors in the game. So yeah, it's glad to have you in Lithuania and compete in those
Mm-hmm.
hunger games, so to speak, because I think there is future to that, and there will be much more independence. And that's unfortunate. Maybe we will have less work as a counselors, but I try not to. Uh, I try not to identify too much of what I do. I try to do what is useful, and if there are more useful ways to provide help, so I will make sure to learn that. So
Yep.
awesome. So any to finish off, any concluding remarks maybe that you're taking from our conversation and you think would be good to summarize? I mean, that's a question I oftentimes ask my clients during sessions, but still I think it would be a great way to finish off anything that you would like to summarize or finish from, or what you're taking from our discussion, or anything that you would like to listeners to take from this.
Mm. Um, I think what we mentioned quite a couple of times, it is really it is really important how things are happening and not only what things are happening. And in
Mm,
the how lies the emotional resilience, emotional safety, relationships, trusting each other. And um, this is why I'm part of Mindletic. Uh, not to grow the next startup to become a unicorn, but to really help people um, either individually become more emotionally aware and emotionally resilient and be able to handle difficult situations in a more constructive ways, if they need so, to have professional help with psychologists that can help them figure things out and really understand better themselves, and to have the emotional relief that they need. And all of this hopefully accounts to people who in the mornings feel ready to go to work and feel safe there, can be productive there, can do their best in their companies to be of service to the rest of the world, so that we can move forward. So that's
Yeah,
my
I
take.
like the word service, and I think it was like a very important key theme in our discussion. So I really appreciate, Thomas, that you are a being, that you are on this planet. And if I was a smart businessman, I would copy you and, and use to create good companies. maybe one day. And yeah, so appreciate that you're here. Appreciate for what you're doing and that you are helping people. And I think that's very important. And especially in the engineering world, I think you're a good example of how to relate with people and how to have difficult conversations compassionately. And I think that there's a lot of benefit to what you do, and I hope that you will not get burned out and you will keep servicing and keep growing and keep helping. So appreciate this.
Thank you.
Okay, Dama. So till next time then. Okay.
Absolutely. See ya.
Okay. Thank you.